we don't expand our imagination,
justification for being what you are.
Welcome to Washington Unplugged. I'm John Dickerson. As congressional Democrats fight to pass health care legislation, national Tea Party activists came to the Capitol to have their voices heard. Recently, they've gotten some competition in the Coffee Party, which held its national kickoff this weekend. Joining me at the news desk this morning are representatives from both groups, Tea Party co-chairs Jenny Beth Martin and Mark Meckler, and Alan Alborn, spokesman for the Coffee Party movement. But first, let's check in with Cheryl Atkinson, who's working on a story for tonight's evening news. Cheryl, your challenge is to talk about the slaughter rule. What is the slaughter rule?
Well, that is a difficult thing to explain. I think the best thing we can do is talk about how it would work in this case. Normally, as you know, the House passes a bill, the Senate passes a bill. It works as sort of the way we learned on Schoolhouse Rock when we were growing up, how a bill becomes a law. This is something entirely different. The problem is the Democrats don't have the votes to do this the normal way. So House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is considering this controversial strategy. The way I wrote it down is, with the self-executing rule, as it's called, members vote only on the more popular bill, meaning they're not going to vote on the Senate bill. It's controversial because it has all those provisions in it that you've heard about, like the Louisiana Purchase, the Cornhusker kickback, and what some see as federal funding for abortion. Instead of making the House members cast a vote on that, they will only vote on a fix for the bill, a so-called reconciliation bill, and the controversial one will have been deemed to have been passed. That's why it's also called deem and pass in addition to the self-executing rule. It's basically, in short, a way to get around the idea that members of Congress will have to have their name attached in a vote linked to something very unpopular and controversial, which is the Senate version of that bill.
Now, Cheryl, when we all watched Schoolhouse Rock, the reason it stuck in our heads is because they had those lovely cartoons, and we could watch sort of a narrative happen. In putting this piece together, do you sort of have to be sort of graphics heavy and really kind of sit people down and say, here comes something that's extremely complicated, but just stick with me? Do you have to kind of give them a heads up that this is going to be extremely complicated and use graphics to tell the tale?
More or less. I mean, we've been working on a graphic for this for the past day, and we've looked at using the Schoolhouse Rock format for the graphic that's going to explain how this works, because in the simplest of terms, when you're working on a television news piece, as you know, you have to be able to tell the viewer that's watching this and will only see it go by once while they're probably partly distracted looking at and thinking about other things. We want them to understand the very basics about this process in a format which graphics will definitely help with.
That's great. Thanks so much, Cheryl. We look forward to it. All right, let's get our roundtable started. Let's start with you, Mark. Tea Party activists up on Capitol Hill. Why are they here? What are they talking about?
So the reason they're really here is because they're frustrated. They feel like they're not being listened to by their congressional representatives. All of the polling shows that the great majority of American people would like Congress to do one thing, and that is to address health care in a transparent and ethical manner. The majority of public opinion, over 70%, say that has not been done so far. They want Congress to go back to the drawing board and start over again. And we're here to help people be active, to come in and actually speak face to face with their congressional representatives.
And how did it go, Jenny Beth? We're real close to the finish line here. Did that get folks up here? There was some question about whether the turnout was as high as you'd hoped. How did it go?
Well, we didn't have any anticipation of the turnout. When we do these things, we never know. I was just hoping that we'd have over 100 people. We definitely had over 100 people, so I was happy. And we had a lot of people from Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And then we had people from Georgia, Florida, Texas, people from Texas, North Carolina. So we had in Ohio, lots of people coming in. And we had, I'd say, several thousand people, and they went to lobby their congressman and to talk to their congressman, and I think that went well.
Alan, let me ask you, the Coffee Party, tell me what its mission is. How is it different from the Tea Party? And then we'll go from there.
Well, to be honest, Mark's opening covered a lot of the things that the Tea Party believes in. We feel that we're not being heard, we're underrepresented, and we don't have an outlet to share our issues. Tea Party is about democracy. We believe in and like our democracy, but we think it has some problems. And so our focus is on organizing this grassroots movement, and we're only a month old, so we're just now deciding what we care about, finding out what our constituents care about. And there's 170,000 Facebook page folks and growing, and organizing to influence Congress. We think it's broke. We want to fix it. And I think you probably feel the same way.
Absolutely.
When the Tea Party was founded, there was some principles, focusing on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, going back to the founding principles of the country. The Coffee Party seemed to come sort of as a reaction to the Tea Party, as opposed to being founded on core principles that are outside of this kind of reaction. What are the core principles here that if somebody's saying, well, I'm interested in the Coffee Party, what are the kind of core principles they can sign on to?
Well, we also believe in the Constitution as the basis of our government and what we believe in. When you're a month old, and this probably was where you were last year, we're really trying to decide what we're about. But our core principle is democratic principles, and a place where people across the political spectrum can come together to discuss issues, to decide what America cares about. It's natural that we be cast as coffee or tea, but that's not really the case. The Coffee Party may be a rather serendipitous name, but the fact is everybody's welcome, and our representatives tend to consist of folks from your progressives to liberal to conservative Democrats to conservative Republicans. I'm an independent fiscal conservative myself.
The Tea Party activists who are up on Capitol Hill, we have a clip of one of the kind of more contentious moments. I want to show it and then talk to you all about how these messages can get, well, I'll show you the clip and then we'll talk about it. All right. So here we have a not unfamiliar scene from, we certainly saw liberals with these kind of situations during the anti-war protests. Why don't people, when they see something like that, think this is just kind of more noise in Washington, it's a kind of familiar thing? How do you keep the message from getting drowned out by kind of just these confrontational moments so that people know exactly what you're about, Mark?
Well, I think, first of all, that's not representative. I personally probably visited over a dozen congressional offices yesterday. It was calm, orderly, respectful. There were certainly disagreements, but it was always done in an orderly and respectful manner. I can't tell you what led to that clip we just saw, as I wasn't there. We encourage everybody to be calm and respectful. That's the only way we can have valuable dialogue in a democracy.
Jenny, Beth, in the elections coming up, we've talked about this before. How is the Tea Party movement exerting its influence in the elections? When you have these conversations on health care, are you saying to members, hey, we've got an election coming up, if you don't hear us and you ignore us, you're in trouble?
We're not saying that. Well, we have three core values: fiscal responsibility, constitutionally limited government, and free markets. And we want our elected officials to adhere to those core values. And as far as the elections go, we're going to focus on the issues, not the people. We're looking for making sure that these issues resonate and that people are willing to promise that they are going to be fiscally responsible and limit the government and allow free markets to work.
Alan, let me ask you, the Tea Party movement harnessed a kind of a real anger with the way representatives in Washington were working. The Coffee Party seems a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less likely to walk the halls. Is that a misapprehension, or is that where something will the Coffee Party be getting more sort of in the face, to use for lack of a better expression?
No. As a matter of fact, our core principle is to restore a civil society. As a matter of fact, Mark's comment about civil conduct, I absolutely agree. And Jenny's core values, those could be ours. I absolutely agree. As someone who could have been a member of the Tea Party, though, I'll admit the media attention on those types of events turns people like me off. I'm not a shouter. I'm not a funny hat or sign guy. And that's one of the reasons I joined the Coffee Party, giving you honest feedback to help your movement. A lot of our core values are the same, and I hope we get a chance to come together and talk about the intersection and worry about what we disagree with later, because we agree with a heck of a lot just based upon this short segment, so we can work together to get the government we want.
Although, if you're seeing this from the perspective of a lot of voters, here you have Congress and the president moving towards passing health care that a lot of people don't like. And one of the charges against the president is that he's arrogant, that he's not listening to people. Now, if somebody doesn't consistently listen to you, shouldn't you kind of let your voice be heard in a louder voice, because, hey, you're not being listened to?
Those are patriotic Americans expressing their First Amendment right. And while I may not be someone who gets out like that with a sign, I respect the fact that they care enough to do that. I'm a 22-year veteran of the Army. I spent most of my adult life protecting their constitutional rights to be out there. Right. So have at it. I'm not one of those folks, though, and we plan to very much de-emphasize that, as it appears you'd really like to also.
Well, I would like to say when over 60% of the American public do not want a bill to pass, and you're watching your elected officials who are supposed to represent you and reflect what the American people want, when they're completely ignoring that, then you do have to make sure that they listen. We're still obeying the law, and we're focused on obeying the law and being productive and nonviolent. Loud voices don't necessarily mean anything other than just listen to me. Can you hear me?
Right. Okay, well, we'll have to end it there. We'll look forward to continuing this conversation. There will be plenty of other issues to come, I know. Thank you all for joining us. Now, if you could sit down with the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, what would you tell her are the most important challenges in U.S. foreign policy? At the Alliance for Youth Movement Summit in London last week, Kaylee Hartung got the first look at a new technology the State Department is now using to let you tell her what you think. Take a look.
Develop our capacity.
You've heard Secretary Clinton use the term 21st century statecraft. Well, now you can be a part of the conversation.
Today was very much the launch of a beta experiment. We're creating basically a virtual town hall.
Ari Wallach is a technology consultant. He's working with the State Department and the University of California at Berkeley Center for New Media to introduce and develop this new platform for engagement with the U.S. government. Log on to the State Department's website from anywhere in the world. On Opinion Space, you can share your opinion on U.S. foreign policy and see what others think.
As we move the sliders around on Opinion Space, what we're actually doing is manipulating a very powerful mathematical formula, very similar to the one that Amazon.com uses to recommend different books to read based on what you have read. The difference here is that instead of saying, oh, you should read this book, it's actually aggregating opinions vis-a-vis other opinions based on all the users that are visiting the website.
There's also an opportunity to highlight whatever foreign policy issue is most important to you.
So here's where the magic is happening. So once I click this, the very powerful supercomputers at UC Berkeley are going to crunch my information.
Opinion Space then plots your points of view on its opinion map.
This is me right here. I'm a very small dot. So these large glowing orbs that you see on the screen are people's opinions that other people said, I find these very insightful. But again, it's not saying what's right or what's wrong or I'm more liberal or I'm more conservative. What it's really saying is, Ari, this is where you stand vis-a-vis other users on this website right now.
And joining me now is Katie Dowd, the new media director at the State Department. Thanks for coming by today, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me, what are you guys going to do with this information at the State Department?
Sure. Well, so we just launched Opinion Space on Monday, and we're really excited about it. Secretary Clinton has been very open with us and allowing us to try new technologies, to use new tools in our people-to-people diplomacy. And I think that we're really looking at this as an experiment in partnership with the University of Berkeley, and hope that we are going to engage audiences globally on issues about our foreign policy. I think we want to learn what the global opinions are out there on a range of the foreign policy issues that we're dealing with today. And again, it's really an experiment, and I hope that we will watch the community discuss and learn from one another, and we'll learn to adapt as the community adapts.
So this technology is going to keep evolving. Where do you see it going?
Again, I think that we're really in a unique time where the Secretary has been very open with us about letting us try new platforms, try new tools from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Opinion Space to us is a new tool in our toolbox to engage audiences. It's unique in that you can rate other people's opinions, you can learn from other people. Just because we may not agree doesn't mean that I can't learn from your opinion. And so I think we'll look to see that conversations you may have on a coffee table discussion on foreign policy, maybe you can have them on Opinion Space now, and maybe we can learn from one another. We'll look to keep everybody updated on the opinions that they're sharing. We'll do blog posts on DipNote, our blog, to hopefully continue the conversation and engage the community going forward.
So you really think this is something that members of the State Department staff are going to be checking into to really get a feel. This isn't just a one-way street. People aren't just talking with no one listening.
No, in fact, we've made a big effort at the State Department. The Secretary's seen the tool. She's interested in the conversation. Each month we're going to open up a new discussion question for the community to come back and discuss. And so, I hope in the next month we'll be able to do some updating on where we've been, what we see, what we're learning, and hopefully the community will have a chance to learn more about the foreign policy objectives that we're promoting.
Well, thanks so much for coming by
Thank you
today.
very much, Kaylee.
John?
Okay, thanks, Katie. Thanks, Kaylee. And thanks all of you for watching Washington Unplugged. I'm John Dickerson. Have a great day.
If we don't expand our imagination,
Justification for being what you are.